Hey everyone, it's Brian here from Massey's Main Entertainment. Doc and I have finally managed to circle back around and get back together again to do our series of the top 10 albums for particular years. And what we've been doing is we rotate who gets to choose the year. And this time around, I chose the year. We're only on our second one. And I chose the year 1995. It's actually the year I graduated from college. I was a radio station manager for an alternative radio station. So that obviously figured heavily into my brain probably during that time. But Doc, him and I are about the same age, but he's from a different country, different perspective, different types of music that he was into. So I expect that the list could be vastly different. But I don't know, Doc. How many matches did you think we were going to have?
I thought about it for a second there going into it. And yeah, we're the same age, Brian. So uh, I think we're going to end up with four. There's a possibility of three, but I think it could be four. I think it could be four.
I'm only going to say two. I guess I'm just really pessimistic about this one, but I don't know. I could be completely wrong, and you surprise me with a couple, and that would be great as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to keep this video all as one video this time around, and we're going to try out this format. Doc's going to give me his number 10 through 6. Then I'll give everybody my 10 through 6, and then Doc would do his 5 to 1, and I'll do my 5 to 1, and at the end we'll talk about our list a little bit, and Doc gets to choose the year that we'll do for the next time. So without further ado, Doc, I am turning over the mic to you. What's your number 10?
Here we go.
Let's do it.
1995. This is a weird year for it's different kind of music, right? This is alternative music really taking off, and some different things happening in music again, right? It's always changing, but just a different time in the whole history of music, or mid 90s. So yes, I am Canadian. So and we might see that up here, and we're going to start off probably with that anyway. So as much as some of this stuff is probably overplayed in some senses too, I am going to start just because I think it deserves to be in the top 10 albums of the year. I'm going to go with Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill.
Okay.
Yes, there's look, it sold 1 billion copies or something, man. I don't know.
It went diamond. I think it's close to 30 mil.
Yeah. So it was a monster.
Yeah.
There's a reason. There's a lot of catchy tunes on this, especially for the time, right? The era of the time. Not saying that it's still with me and anything else like that. You Learn might be the best song on that album still to me, probably. It's not You Want to Know or Hand in My Pocket or Ironic or anything like that. But there was monster hit after each one. So I kind of do it as a kudos for them in the sense that I'll throw a Jagged Little Pill in at number 10.
Nice.
I'm going to go with Green Day's Insomniac at number 9.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
I do like some Green Day back in the day here, and it's there's still some stuff. It's still got my favorite Green Day tune on here, man. I think Brain Stew is still probably my favorite tune. So from them, and Geek Stink Breath is pretty cool. But this is where they really had like the mix. It almost sounded like beginning Green Day before Dookie and stuff like this. So this sounded like more punkish, grungish rock, going back to almost like the roots for them in some senses too. So still like the sound. It's got to be a fit for it. You got to be in the mood for it. It's still doing some senses for me too, but. Yeah, Brain Stew, I could put on at any time. I still think it's a really catchy tune, so I'll go with that.
Nice.
We'll go back to that Canadian flair again for my number 8. So I'm going to go with a band called Our Lady Peace. So the album's called Naveed. So once again, this is their debut album here. 94 in Canada, 95 North America debut. So fits the bill. They have a really unique sound. The guy's got a really unique voice. The guy's name is Ray. But they just missed cutting into, I think, to the state side from here. And it was just missed it. And they had a sound that could have taken them some places. And they still pump out some pretty good stuff, to be honest with you. But they have that grunge sound, really good songs in there, some really good ones. The title track, Naveed's really good. But Starseed, if you want to check out a tune off the album, I'd say that's a really catchy, and to get the idea when I'm talking about his voice, but it's a rock song with the alternative vibe to it still. So that'd be my number 8. Number 7, I'll stay in my lane, I guess, in some senses here too, right? So I got the Foo Fighters debut album here.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. And this is there's some really catchy songs on this. The first half of this album is pretty solid still, I think. You know, to this day, I think the first 3 or 4 tracks on this album are really good. And I guess the one thing that I keep coming back to is they didn't know exactly almost which sound they were going for, because they had almost like 2 different sounds that they were, you know, it was grunge. It was like almost like, you know, sometimes it sounds almost like 60 rock or something like that at certain times during those things. But you can tell that it was all there, something that might have some legs for them to stick around as long as they have here, because this is debut in '95 and they're still sticking around. So yeah, not everybody's cup of tea is the Foo Fighters. Not everybody's cup of tea is in all these lists anyway. So it's just going to be what it is. But you know, I still have a little love for the Foo Fighters. They've got some pretty good tunes in my eyes. So they made a number 6, I guess, right? So like my first half, we'll end it with Van Halen's Bounce.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is, it's not my favorite Van Halen album, that's for sure, but there's still some catchy songs. I do like the Sammy era, probably a tad more than the David era. That's me. But I'd say that this is almost a product of the time too. It still sounds like it's almost like that. I don't want to say manufactured rock sound or anything like that, but it does have some catchy parts to it like that, where it's still a mainstream kind of rock album for them. But Eddie's still on guitar. They still got the Van Halen sound. And to be honest with you, I've got no problem going back to the Van Halen sound at any time. So if it's catchy, and they do have some good stuff. And I like Sammy's voice too. So I'm going to put Bounce in at number 6 for me end of the year.
Nice. Real quick, I'm Jagged Little Pill. I figured would be one of the 2 that I would have picked, you know, for, you know, that I thought we could match on. The Our Lady Peace, I had heard of them because they were just like you said, we are just on the cusp of making it big, but they had this like post grunge sound that, you know, it just got swallowed up because so many bands were trying to sound like that.
True. Yeah.
Just, and they were doing it first almost, and then everybody, like 2 years later, by '97, like all these bands sounded like that.
That's, you know, true.
And I think that was probably, it's just timing. Just
yeah,
about timing.
You're right. I think they just got pushed aside with too much volume from that kind of sound.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, let's switch over here real quick. At number 10, this was going to be a little bit of a surprise, I think, Doc. I've got Emmylou Harris's Wrecking Ball here.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. This one here, this is an album that kind of introduced in the last year anyway. It's kind of a transformative album for Emmylou. She blends alternative rock and folk and country, like all into one. Daniel Lanois actually produces this album. So it has this really dreamlike quality, you know, that he always seems to add to his albums, where it has a lot of layers to it. She does a really good job of like reinterpreting some tracks that are obviously covers, and I think her voice is just so different that I really liked her as, I mean, maybe one of my top 10 favorite country artists. So a couple tracks you should check out on there is Goodbye, and then the title track Wrecking Ball. I think everybody should check it out. The album only got to as high as number 94 on the Billboard chart. So number 9, I've got a Britpop band here, Blur, The Great Escape. They were, of course, part of the great battle of the Britpop that was going on that year between them and Oasis. And Blur is kind of this, led by Damon Albarn. So kind of the whole album is kind of this satirical look at British life, blending catchy pop hooks with dark, cynical lyrics. Album's a good mixture of upbeat stuff too, and reflective stuff, and societal pressures and disillusionment. Great songs to check out there: Country House, Charmless Man, Universal. Again, only modest success, only 150 on the Billboard chart, but really a well-known Britpop album at this point. Number 8 for me, I've got PJ Harvey's To Bring You My Love, my favorite album by her. Not a lot of people are into her because she's got a very distinctive voice, and she can be a little dark and morose at times. This one is along those lines, a little dark and bluesy, stylistic shift for her. It's got this haunting atmosphere, some raw emotion in it, but it does have some well-known tracks some people will know from there, like Down by the Water was very popular, and Come On Billy. and then of course the title track, to bring you my love. It got as high as number 40 on the Billboard chart, so she had a little success there. Number 7, I've got Pulp. This is another Brit. This is like my favorite Britpop album, I would imagine. You know, from just a strict classification of that. Pulp's different class, quintessential. They call it the quintessential Britpop album, known for its witty and observant, lyrics and about class and relationships. The frontman is Jarvis Cocker. If some people might recognize, Jarvis Cocker was actually the band that was in Harry Potter when they had the ball or whatever. That was the rock band that was playing, was Jarvis Cocker and those guys. So, you know, that's a little bit of trivia there. Great social commentary on the album. Definitely the notable tracks are Common People, which William Shatner did a cover of, people might remember. And then Disco 2000 was this huge hit as well. This got as high as number 34 on the chart. And then finally at number 6 here on the top half, I've got Left Field Leftism. I do have a affinity for trip hop and down tempo type of music, ambient music, and this follows along all those lines. It's considered a seminal electronica album, fuses house, techno, and dub all into one to create this really interesting, you know, trip hoppy sound with some great bass lines and stuff. Check out the songs Release the Pressure and Original, and maybe Open Up is pretty good as well. But it didn't even chart in the top 200 of Billboard. But if people are into electronica music, they would like Left Field. So that's my top half, Doc. A little different, huh?
A little different, but I mean, I'm not going to say to you, like, I'm not going to run it by, Pulp or anything else like that, but, I've got Common People singing in my head right now. So
right. The Shatner version is a little wild, and most people know that version more than they do the Pulp version. So,
but I do know you like PJ Harvey too, so I'm not kind of surprised on that. And I was wondering about Blur, so I didn't know, but I'm not going to say I'm overly shocked or anything like that, but
right.
Thought maybe you might have something like that on the list. So
nice. Yeah, I know. Different. I guess because my musical taste is going to change every year, probably.
Probably that's the way it's going to be. Yeah, that's safe. That's what it's all about, man. Everyone's got their own vibe, right? So,
all right, let's jump into your top 5.
So I'm just going to run the 5, right? So, my number 5 is going to be Oasis. What's the story? Morning Glory.
I was wondering.
Yeah, it's. I think it deserves it here in the top 10 to me. So it's not my favorite kind of music, anything else like that. But when I first heard Champagne Supernova, man, I'm not going to lie to you, I thought, man, that's a great tune. Got a lot of vibes on that one. And then Wonderwall and Don't Look Back in Anger and all these other things. It's a really solid album, man. It's got the sound, that British sound that they're trying to do here. Be it burlesque or whatever you want to call it and stuff like that. And it's a really good album, man. And like I said, I got a real soft spot for Champagne Supernova, man. I think that's a real smoking tune still. So still a good song in my eyes. And I think the album deserves to go with it. So I'm going to have Oasis at number 5.
Good pick.
Thanks, buddy. Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness from Smashing Pumpkins is number 4. It's hard to do some of these things in some senses, right? Because that's a double album, man. There's a lot of tracks here.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of great tracks on this album, man. I must have been singing, "The World Is a Vampire" for 6 months straight there at one time in my life, man. I just couldn't get it out of my head there. So, but "Butterfly Wings," man, is a great tune.
Yeah,
there's a lot of great songs. 1979, Tonight. There's a different sound of this album from what else was being played at that time, I think, and it still stands out today. That it's, I think 1979 is a classic song from that year, man, and that's sticking with me no matter what. That's a great tune.
Yeah,
the album's really solid all the way around. Corgan's a quirky kind of guy, but I think deep down he's pretty talented too. So I think Billy knows what he's doing when he's putting together a song, and I think he does it here on this one really well, man. Yeah. And he had Siamese and stuff like that. So
I do remember them saying it's the best at the time, at least. I don't know if it's different. It was the best-selling double album of all time.
Really?
Yeah. But that may have changed since, in the last little while. I'm not sure, but at the time they said it did. It broke the record. So,
well, that's pretty impressive if that's the case. So it's our the double selling albums, man. There's a couple of monsters out there, so that's pretty good. So that was my number 4. My number 3. This was the one that's going to surprise you, Brian. Okay, I got Radiohead, The Bend.
Doc, love it, man.
Yeah. Ever since you got me on this, maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, I play it probably once a month, man. I'll be lying in bed or whatever. Listen to this album. I think there's something. So I understand how people can think his voice. I don't know the band that well or anything else like that, but I mean, we've talked about it before. I cannot get into OK Computer for the love of me. So I'm sorry for all the Radiohead people out there. That's just
I
not
try.
My spot. So 3 times, man. I'm not getting into it. I'm not going anymore. But that's it. But the Bends is different, man. That's got a rocky vibe. The way you put it to me when you passed it on, you said, "Listen, give it a shot." And I did. Had that guitar vibe, and it does have the guitar sound, but there's a flow to it. Like I said, his voice can be. I can see how it might be turning off to some people at some times because you don't even know his pronunciations and everything else that goes with his lyrics. Might not be the most solid and stuff like that, but musically, it's really solid, man. And I think those first 3 or 4 opening tracks on that album, man, are just. Man, they're fantastic if you want the truth. So
yeah,
from zero to hero in a lot of senses on my list here for 1995, man. I got the Bends here at number 3.
nice.
Thank God we're allowed to do live albums for this little series that we're doing here. So yeah, it's just the way it is in my life. Okay, so I got Pink Floyd's Pulse at number 2.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. It's a collage of almost Pink Floyd's greatest hits. It's just, and it sounds really, really cool. Yes, Roger's not in it, anything else like that. But this is from the Division Bell tour, and it's all live. And I know some people don't like the mix on it, different things. It's loud or so too much crowd noise and stuff like that. No, it's not, man. This is the way a live album is supposed to sound. This is Pink Floyd's greatest hits in a lot of senses, with and without Roger. High Hopes is on there, the Bother Brothers stuff, Learning to Fly. There's great songs on this album all the way through. It's Pink Floyd, man. This is one of my top 3 or 4 bands of all time. So yeah, I've got Pulse at number 2, man. That was just kind of easy for me. I was going to be positioning on where this was going to land. So, but Brian, you know me, buddy, so you already know what my number 1 is now, don't you?
I don't.
Yeah, it's Collective Soul. Collective Soul.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Blue album.
The Blue album.
Yeah, Blue album. Yeah.
We'll call it the. So if anybody doesn't know, I'm a big Collective Soul fan, man. I don't know what to tell you. I've been with it since Hints, Allegations, Things Left Unsaid from the beginning, 94. So 93, depending on when it came. Listen to it. As they call this is the real debut album.
Yes.
That's what they like to say. And I think Collective Soul is one of those bands, man. They got a unique sound. They had the sound of the 90s. And they're still pumping out really good music in my eyes.
Yeah.
The double album came out a month and a half ago. So they've been doing it for 30 years. You don't do it for 30 years if you're not pretty good at what you're doing, man. And they've got the Collective Soul sound. I think a lot of people don't know that every time they hear a Collective Soul song, it's actually Collective Soul. So, December or Where the River Flows, Smashing Young Man, Gel, December. This is December's one of my favorite songs, let alone best song on this album. But Collective Soul was an easy one for me to put at number 1 here, man. They've been with me my whole life at this time on, and then that's one of the few that have been with me since that time. So I got number 1.
Excellent choice. I mean, I just recently, as you know, saw them in concert. They were on tour with Hootie and the Blowfish.
Nice hat.
They played 10 songs, and 4 of them were from this album. So that tells you how good that tells you how good this album is. When you're playing just 10 songs and almost half of your set is coming from one album, that just shows you the strength of the album. So yeah, that makes total sense to me. All right. So let's see how many we matched on here. I'm gonna probably have to end up admitting that you're probably right. So number 5 for me, I've got, this is where we differ. I've got Bjork's Post here. This is her second album. It came right off of her debut album, which was actually called Debut. This kind of blends a little bit more electronica and dance and alternative elements, and she has that weird experimental distinct style of a voice that she has. But she always, if you look at her lyrics really close, really got good themes of love and heartbreak and just striving for independence, and even like a lash out at her brother on the track Army of Me, which is a suggested track, I would say. It's So Quiet, also charted. Hyper Ballad was a big hit for that. That album got all the way to number 32 on the Billboard chart, but was a big, huge hit for alternative radio stations. So number 4 for me, we match here. I got Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Good.
This is hugely ambitious to do a double album at this time, I think, because there's so many artists out there that we're clogging up the radio. But I think behind the strength of their music videos, I think that Billy and the group here were able to kind of like put themselves way ahead here. It's got this great sprawling cinematic themes of melancholy and love and loss, and it showcases his great songwriting and the band's diversity. You mentioned Bullet with Butterfly Wings, which is a fantastic video. I always remember the line, "Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage." This album did make it to number 1. It stayed there for a good bit. So, and like I said, last time I had checked, it was the best-selling double album ever. So, number 3, we match again. Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory.
Really?
I think it's a defining album in the Britpop era, featuring anthemic tracks and catchy melodies. And a lot of people will debate whether they want to consider them Britpop or not. And I think sometimes they do that if people get too popular. And they'll say, "Oh, well, they're not really Britpop." And I'm like, well, if the band says they are, then they are. That's how I look at it. So they got this, obviously, if you listen to this album coming off of Definitely Maybe, they picked up the swag on this great blend of rock and pop stuff going on here. This just launched them into international stardom. You mentioned Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger, great tune, and then Champagne Supernova. I mean, that's great. I think it's a bookend track, as a matter of fact. Fantastic. Yeah. Got to number 4 on that Billboard chart. So number 2, we match again with Jagged Little Pill here. I got Alanis. I got Your Girl Higher. I don't know how that happened, right? I mean,
look at that.
He's from your neck of the woods, but I say that, but I think I'm actually more north than you are in Maine. So but it's her breakthrough album. It blended rock, alternative, and this raw pop sound with these deeply personal, almost confessional like lyrics. I think she deals with themes of heartbreak, anger, and empowerment. Obviously, this is considered like a really strong example of great feminist rock and roll, I would think. It has a lot of angst to it, and I think that it was hard for her to duplicate that after there without, I don't know how deep you can actually go into your psyche and still keep your sanity, because this was already a very deep album. And like you said, it had just a ton of hits. It seemed like every song was charting off this album. And then finally, number 1, it's the band that I was surprised that you had them as high as you did. I've got the Bends here from Radiohead at number 1. I think it's a pivotal moment for Radiohead because they came off of Pablo Honey, and of course they're only known for Creep, and it was a track that they weren't very happy with themselves personally. And I think this album was at least cathartic to them. They're able to kind of shed that persona of just being a one-hit wonder band with that one song. So a lot of grunge influences here. You mentioned the the melancholic sound of Tom's voice. He's very smart songwriter, but his voice can have this droning effect at times, and I think that's the big turnoff for people when they listen. But tracks like Fake Plastic Trees, High and Dry, Just is a really good rock track. My Iron Lung, and then there's a track that turned me on to Radiohead, their bookend track, Street Spirit Fade Out. It's just the guitar work in that from Johnny Greenwood is just outstanding, and I fell in love with the band. That's my number 1, Radiohead, the Bends.
Smells like 4 the same, buddy.
4 the same. Somebody's right here. I don't know how that happened. But I was surprised. I was surprised on the Radiohead thing. That threw a curve to a
Oh,
curve
yeah.
to me.
There might be a curve. I told you before we got going, buddy. There could be a curve.
That's nice.
That's okay.
So yeah. So we're going to keep doing this stuff, Doc. But Doc, I'm going to leave it to you. You get to announce what year we're doing next here for our top 10 album series. What's going on?
Yeah.
Where are we going?
So yeah, nobody knows. Brian doesn't know. So this is it. So we'll do 1976.
1976.
Yeah.
Wow, that's an interesting year. It's right in between two huge years.
Yeah,
right in between there. All right. I'm looking forward to that. I want to invite everybody to like, sub, comment. Please give us your top 10 albums down below as well, or just tell me how bad my choices were. That's probably just as fun and fine by me. That's kind of fun, actually. People rip into us, and we really appreciate you guys watching.
Definitely.
Doc, thank you so much for doing this series with
me. Definitely, buddy.
I'm going to enjoy doing this with you and have some fun while we do it. So until next time, everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Peace out.